The air hung heavy and wet. It clung to Miguel like a shroud. The night pulsed with the chirping of crickets, a constant reminder of the heat. From the goat pen, a goat bleated, a thin, reedy sound that spoke of terror. Miguel wiped the sweat from his brow. He gripped his rifle tighter, his heart thudding against his ribs. The whispers had started weeks ago. Farmers finding their livestock drained, their bodies pale and lifeless. Strange tracks in the mud, unlike anything known. Fear, thick and choking, had settled over San Martin. Fear of the unknown, fear of El Chupacabra. Tonight it was Miguel's turn to stand guard, to face the darkness and protect what remained of his brother's herd. He patrolled the perimeter of the property, his senses on high alert. The scent of dry earth and animal musk filled his nostrils. An owl hooted in the distance, its mournful cry echoing in the stillness. He paused, listening. The goat's bleating had ceased, replaced by an unsettling silence. This silence, deeper than the night itself, sent a shiver down Miguel's spine. He knew, with a sickening certainty, that something was wrong. Very wrong. Word spread like wildfire through the village. Each gruesome discovery fueled the flames of fear. Goats, chickens, even a calf, all drained of blood, their bodies left mangled and disfigured. The elders spoke of El Chupacabra, a creature of legend, a nightmare whispered around campfires. Miguel had scoffed at the stories, old wives' tales meant to scare children, but now, standing in the oppressive darkness, doubt gnawed at his resolve. The air itself seemed charged with an unnatural energy. A low growl, barely audible, seemed to rise from the very earth beneath his feet. He remembered the stories his grandmother used to tell, tales of a creature that stalked the night, preying on the unsuspecting. A creature with razor-sharp claws and glowing red eyes, a creature that sucked the blood of its victims, leaving behind only empty shells. He shook his head, trying to dispel the images that flashed through his mind. He had to stay focused. He had to be logical. There had to be a rational explanation for the killings. But deep down, a primal fear whispered its own truth. He moved towards the goat pen, his boots crunching on the dry earth. Each step felt heavy, as if he were wading through water. His eyes scanned the shadows, searching for any sign of movement. The moon, a blood-red orb in the sky, cast long, grotesque shadows that danced and twisted with every gust of wind. The air was thick with the smell of fear, a pungent, almost metallic tang. The goats were huddled together in the far corner of the pen, their eyes wide with terror. Their bleating had resumed, a chorus of distress that grated on Miguel's nerves. He checked the gate, making sure it was securely fastened. The wood was old and weathered, but it seemed to be intact. He moved along the fence line, inspecting every inch. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched, that something was lurking just beyond the reach of his sight. He stopped at the edge of the cornfield. The tall stalks swayed gently in the breeze, their leaves rustling like whispers in the night. It was here, in the heart of the field, where he felt most uneasy, as if whatever lurked in the darkness was watching him, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Reaching the first pen, his blood ran cold. The once sturdy fence lay in splintered ruins. Jagged edges of wood pointed skyward like accusing fingers. Blood, dark and glistening in the moonlight, painted the remaining boards. The air reeked of death. He saw the goat then, or what was left of it. It lay in a mangled heap, its eyes staring blankly at the sky. Its once white fleece was stained crimson. The creature's feeding had been savage, almost surgical in its precision. Miguel felt a surge of nausea. He'd seen death before. This was different. This wasn't the work of wild dogs or coyotes. This was something else entirely, something evil. He scanned the area, his eyes adjusting to the darkness. He saw the tracks, clear as day in the blood-soaked earth. They were unlike anything he'd ever seen, three-toed with long, sharp claws. The tracks of a predator, the tracks of El Chupacabra. Section 5, a glimpse of the devil. A guttural growl ripped through the night, freezing Miguel in his tracks. He spun around, his rifle coming up, heart pounding against his ribs. There, in the middle of the pen, stood the creature of his nightmares. It stood about 4 feet tall, its body hunched and grotesque. Its skin was a sickly grey, stretched taut over a skeletal frame. Spikes, like those of a lizard, protruded from its back, ending in a wickedly barbed tail. But it was the eyes that held Miguel captive. They glowed with an eerie red light, burning with a cold, malevolent intelligence. The creature's head snapped up, its nostrils flaring as it tasted the air. Miguel saw rows of razor-sharp teeth dripping with a viscous fluid. It was the stuff of nightmares, a grotesque parody of a living creature. For a moment their eyes met. Time seemed to stand still. Miguel felt a surge of primal fear, a deep-seated terror that threatened to overwhelm him. He knew, with a certainty that defied logic, that this creature was beyond his understanding, beyond anything he could fight. The chupacabra moved with a speed that belied its size. It shot forward, a blur of teeth and claws. Miguel had just enough time to raise his rifle before the creature slammed into him. He cried out as he hit the ground, the air driven from his lungs. The creature's weight pressed down on him, its fetid breath hot on his face. He caught a glimpse of those eyes, blazing with a cold, predatory hunger. His finger tightened on the trigger. The report of the rifle echoed through the night, momentarily deafening him. He felt the creature stiffen, its grip on him loosening slightly. He shoved it back with all his strength, scrambling to his feet. The creature lay on the ground, twitching. Smoke curled from the wound in its chest, but it was still alive. The stench of blood and decay filled Miguel's nostrils. He backed away, his eyes never leaving the creature. It was then he noticed the other wounds, the scars that crisscrossed its body. This creature was a survivor. Rage, raw and primal, fueled the creature. It sprang to its feet, hissing and spitting. The gunshot wound, though severe, seemed to have done little to deter its bloodlust. It lunged at Miguel again, its claws slashing at his face. He ducked just in time, feeling the wind of its claws as they whistled past his ear. He brought the butt of his rifle down on the creature's head, hearing a sickening crunch. The creature staggered back, shaking its head, but it wasn't over yet. The creature lunged again, sinking its teeth into Miguel's arm. He screamed in pain, the taste of blood filling his mouth. He slammed his fist into the creature's side, feeling ribs crack under his blow. They grappled in the dirt, a tangle of limbs and teeth and fury. Miguel knew he couldn't keep this up for long. The creature was too strong, too fast. He needed to end this, now. Summoning the last of his strength, Miguel brought his knee up hard into the creature's chest. He felt something give way beneath his knee. The creature howled in pain, a high-pitched, almost human sound that chilled him to the bone. He shoved the creature off him, scrambling back until he hit the fence. He fumbled for his rifle, his fingers slick with sweat and blood. He found it, brought it up, aiming at the creature's heart. The creature stared back at him, its eyes burning with hatred and pain. For a moment he hesitated. Was it fear he saw in those eyes, or was it something else? Something cunning, calculating. He didn't have time to ponder the question. The creature let out a deafening shriek, a sound filled with pain and rage and something else. A warning? Then with a speed that defied logic, it disappeared into the cornfield. Silence descended once more, heavy and absolute. Miguel remained slumped against the fence, his chest heaving, his ears ringing. He looked down at his arm, now a mangled mess of flesh and blood. The pain was a distant throb. He had survived for now. He knew with a certainty that chilled him to the bone that the creature would return. It had tasted his blood, marked him as its own, and next time it would be back for more. As he stumbled back towards the farmhouse, the first rays of dawn painting the sky with hues of orange and purple, he couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed. He was no longer the same Miguel who had started his patrol that night. He had looked into the abyss, and the abyss had looked back. And in the rustling leaves of the cornfield he could almost hear it, a low growl, a promise whispered on the wind, a promise of darkness to come.